Emotional process. Bowen describes emotional cutoff as the way people manage the intensity of fusion between the generations. A cutoff can be achieved through physical distance or through forms of emotional withdrawal. Cutting off emotional contact is not necessarily the same as cutting off communication, but it involves distancing oneself from family members to become more emotionally independent. Bowen distinguished between breaking away from the family and growing away from the family. Growing away is viewed as part of differentiation. Adult family members follow independent goals while also recognizing that they are part of their family system. A cut-off is more like an escape. People decide to be completely different from their family origin. Bowen proposes that if one does not see himself as part of the system, his only options are either to get others to change or to withdraw. If one sees himself as part of the system, he has a new option: to stay in contact with others and change self. Cut-offs are not always dramatic rifts. An example of a covert emotional cut-off will be the one family member maintaining an anxious silence in the face of others' anger. The pull to restore harmony overwhelms the ability to stay in contact with the issue that has been raised. Multi-generational transmission process. This concept of Bowen's theory describes how patterns, themes, and positions in a triangle are passed down from generation to generation, through the projection from parents to child. The impact will be different from each child depending on the degree of triangling they have been with their parents. People tend to seek out mates with similar levels of differentiation of self as themselves. Then their children will, for the most part, take after them. This means that small differences in the level of differentiation between parents and children will grow larger over time. For example, the child who is more differentiated from their parents will go on to have children who are likely to be slightly more differentiated than themselves. As the pattern continues, the difference in differentiation between generations can become drastic. By learning about your family and its history, and getting to know what made family members tick, how they related, and where they got stuck, you can consider your own role, not simply as a victim or reactor to your experiences, but as an active players in interaction that repeat themselves. Siblings position. Employing Walter Thoman's siblings profile, Bowen considered that sibling position could provide useful information in understanding the roles individuals tend to take in relationship. For example, Thoman's profiles describe eldest children as more likely to take on responsibilities and leadership, with younger siblings more comfortable being dependent and allowing others to make decisions. Middle children are described as having more flexibility to shift between responsibility and dependence, and only child are seen as being responsible and having greater access to the adult world. Bowen noted that these generalized traits are not universally applicable, and that it is possible for a younger sibling to become the functional eldest. Bowen was especially interested in which sibling position in a family is most vulnerable to triangling with parents. It may be that a parent identifies strongest with a child in the same sibling positions as their own, or that a previous cross-generational triangle, example, an eldest child aligned with a grandparent against a parent, that may be repeated. If one sibling in the previous generation suffered a serious illness or died, it is more likely that a child of the present generation in the same sibling position will be viewed as vulnerable and therefore more likely to deter tensions from the parental dyad. Societal emotional process. The concept of societal emotional process describes how the emotional system governs behavior in a whole society. Cultural forces are important in how a society functions, but are insufficient to explain the flow in how well societies adapt in the challenges they face. Bowen's first clue about parallels between familial and societal emotional functioning came from observing families with juvenile delinquents. The parents in such families give children the message, "We love you no matter what you do." Despite impassioned lecture about responsibility and sometimes harsh punishment, parents give in to the child more than they hold the line. The child rebels against the parents and adeptly senses their uncertainties and their position. The child feels controlled and lies to get around the parents. The downward spirals in families dealing with delinquency is an anxiety-driven regression in functioning. In a regression, people act to relieve the anxiety of the moment rather than acting on the principles and taking a long-term view. The symptoms of societal regression include the growth of crime and violence, an increasing divorce rate, a more litigious attitude, a greater polarization between racial groups, less principled decision-making by leaders, increased drug abuse and bureaucracy, and a focus on rights over responsibilities.
And that's all. Thank you.